just want to apologise that when the programme was going to print, we omitted Liam Fitzgerald's name. That was an error on our part, and we apologise for it, and we welcome him here with the band tonight. So, without any more delay, I'll invite Father Robin Morrissey, our parish priest here in Churchtown, to say a few words and welcome the band on stage.
Good evening to you all. You're all very welcome to our fourth event in the 150th anniversary of our church here in Churchtown, which was completed in 1869. As I said, we've already had a number of events. First of all, with the unveiling of the plaque, which is at the back of the church here on the wall, which you may have seen on your way into the church. We also had a church concert organised again in May. We had the Bishop's Mass, which we had a large attendance for. We had that in June. Again, we finished the 150th on the 8th of December with an event, again celebrating the 150th. But tonight's event is timed to coincide with the National Heritage Week. And also tonight, which is very important, we are launching a new CD from the Shandrum Ceili band entitled The Boss Murphy Musical Legacy. Shandrum Ceili band, as you all know, of course, is a triple All-Ireland winner and world class, and it's a privilege that they are here tonight in Churchtown among us. And on behalf of the parish and our local community, I welcome and thank all the performers who are giving of their time and talent this evening, especially Alan Finn from Bonaparte, the leader of Shandrum Ceili band. I think we also have to acknowledge and appreciate the support and help from Churchtown Heritage Society, who has played a very important role in the 150th anniversary year of St. Nicholas's Church. They have helped enormously. First of all, they provided the heritage plaque at the rear of the church. Also the booklet that you may have found on your seats, a 92-page booklet on the history of St. Nicholas's Church, which was launched at our Bishop's Mass in June. And we hope to distribute one to every house in our parish. And the society with Shandrum Ceili band was responsible for organising tonight's concert. This is also a very special occasion for the Murphy family, and there are many of them here among us tonight to listen to the traditional music that their forebearer, John Boss Murphy, collected during his lifetime and committed to paper in the years 1933 to 1935, and what is now called the Boss Murphy Musical Legacy. On a lighter note, I think we also need to congratulate another Murphy family member who is here among us tonight, who got married 8 days ago. That is Neil and Owen McKeon, and I think we should give them a round of applause. We congratulate them and wish them a long and happy life together. In a few moments, we will be hearing from Colette Maloney outlining her role in creating the Boss Murphy musical legacy. We will also be hearing from Jerry Murphy on his grandfather's and his association with this church and traditional music in North Cork. So now I hand you over to the Shandrum Ceili band, who will make their entrance, and I hope all enjoy the evening.
Boss Murphy Musical Legacy was the title given after much discussion to the edition of the Boss Murphy music manuscript, which was published in 2003. John Murphy, or Boss Murphy as he was more commonly known, was a fiddle player from the Lep in the Churchtown area, and who, as we've already heard, during the 3-year period 1933 to 35, compiled the music manuscript from his own repertoire. After his death in 1955, his music manuscript remained in his family home. About 1985, Jack, John's son, came across his father's manuscript and decided for some reason to loan the manuscript to me. Gaining access to this manuscript opened up an area of local musical history, of which, despite growing up just a few miles from here, I was hitherto unaware. Even at an initial glance, it was obvious that the majority of the manuscript's contents were no longer part of the local repertoire, and even where the tune titles appeared familiar, the settings of the tunes were not. At the time, I merely photocopied the manuscripts, returned the original to the Murphy family, and kept the copies with the idea of doing something with them in the future, but I have to admit I had no idea what that might be. Sometime later, I had to complete a project for a fieldwork module as part of my undergraduate degree at UCC. And I had the bright idea of designing the fieldwork project around the Murphy manuscript. I undertook interviews with Jack Murphy and the musicians in the area to obtain biographical details on John Murphy and to source detail on the musical history of the Churchtown area from about 1890 to 1955, the period in which John Murphy was most active as a musician. On completion of the fieldwork project, I retained a copy of the manuscript, plus the original interview notes and tapes, and formulated a vague plan that at some stage in the future I would try to publish an edition. Unfortunately, it was to be 2002 before I had the opportunity to return to the Murphy manuscript again, and then, with the permission of the family, I prepared the manuscripts for publication. The introductory sections to the edition, those on the biography of John Murphy and the musical life of the Churchtown area, were based on the information gleaned from the fieldwork interviews, the Murphy family, and public records. The manuscript at the time was a 96-page document, which was arranged in a single collation. The cover of the manuscript was no longer intact. A number of the back pages were damaged, but the manuscript did appear to be complete. There were 312 individual items noted in the manuscript, but the notation of 6 tunes was too erratic to decipher, and hence it was only possible to include 306 in the publication. For an amateur traditional musician, John Murphy displayed an impressive ability in musical transcription, but he did obviously experience some difficulties in translating what was an oral tradition to a notation. Some editing was therefore necessary to allow the material to be easily readable by contemporary musicians. John Murphy was one of a number of early 20th century Irish traditional musicians who decided to commit their repertory to manuscript. The notion of collecting Irish music was not a new one, but the main waves of collection always appear to coincide with periods when Irish music is at a low ebb. An increased facility in music notation amongst traditional musicians and a decline in Irish music led to a wave of private music collections being created by traditional musicians in the 1930s. John Murphy typified the collectors of this period in that he aimed that his manuscript would be made available for the use of future generations of his own family. The Murphy manuscript, however, is unique in that it contains a selection of tunes and settings which have now vanished from the popular repertoire, both locally and nationally, and represents the repertoire of a traditional musician in the Churchtown area of North Cork during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This repertoire was basically a mixture of dance tunes and airs with a splattering of non-traditional Irish items. The manuscript therefore provides a snapshot of music of a small rural community at a particular point in time. John Murphy's dream may have been to preserve the repertoire for future generations of his own family, but the publication of the Boss Murphy musical legacy and the subsequent recording of the music by the Shandrum Ceili band has reintroduced the repertoire to a far wider audience than Murphy could ever have envisaged, and has helped to restore a page in local music history revisioned for a new millennium. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge those musicians and their families who gave so generously with their time and knowledge when I initially interviewed in the 1980s and again in 2003. All acknowledgements are included in the publication, but tonight I would like to make particular mention of some seminal people who contributed to the edition. And I would like to add in no particular order. Fiddle player Nora Farrisey, who had an amazingly detailed memory of the musical history of the locality, and who in the 1980s still had music notation, which had been given to her by the fiddle teachers Jim Condon and Willie Dunn, who had taught her when she was a child. The musicians Bill Egan and the Harrington brothers Emmett, Patsy and Tig, who were extremely knowledgeable on the local music scene, particularly in the mid-20th century. To Jack Murphy, who may not have inherited his father's skill on the fiddle, but who had a keen interest in music and remembered the stories that his father had told him of his musical excursions, and who was the catalyst for the edition by having the trust to share a precious family manuscript with a then music student. Jerry Murphy and the Murphy family, and what was the Churchtown Village Renewal Trust, who supported the publication. And last but not least, to John Murphy for having the foresight to leave a musical time capsule to be rediscovered now that traditional music is once again flourishing in the area. Thank you.